time is I designed a magnetic pillow because I have a Prius, and when I got the Prius, every time I drive 2.5 hours down to San Diego, I would get aches in the back of my legs and behind my knees, especially the right one that worked the gas pedal, because the electromagnetic field. Yeah, it's like they've said carpal tunnel has nothing to do with the electromagnetic field. It's a lie. There was no carpal tunnel until electric typewriters came out. Then, as they got more designed, the EMF fields got greater in computers, then of course, and then the radiation along with it, then carpal tunnel became a big issue, and it is a big issue. But the government denies that it's EMF field. I know very well that it is, because the first time I got my laptop, in 1998, just about a week after utilizing it, I started getting all these aches and all these joints and muscles in my hands, and I thought I was getting cancer again, cancer of the bone. But I moved into a new house, not a new house, an old house, but for me it was a new house in Venice, near the beach, and then got the computer at the same time, the laptop. So I didn't know which it was. So I called in an environmental specialist, came in with all of his meters and gauges, and went through the house. Only found one socket that wasn't grounded, so I went under the house and ground that. He said, turn on your laptop. Turn on my laptop, and he put the gauge on it, and the needle's going boom, 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 really high. It was like somewhere around 35 to 85 milligauss. And it only takes 3 milligauss to alter the molecular structure of a cell, of an animal cell. So that's a very mild amount when you consider I was getting 35 to 85 milligauss. So he said, you're going to have to get a separate keyboard. It cannot be, at that time they didn't have, cordless. They only had corded. And of course that's what we used. And I suggest nobody use a cordless keyboard or mouse. Get a rollerball mouse that plugs in USB. Only company that still makes them is Dell. And I suggest you buy about 5 or 6. I bought 10. Because once they stop making, you're not going to be able to get them anymore. The ultraviolet mouse, infrared mouse, puts out almost 50 milligauss. Just for that one hand-operated instrument, 50 milligauss. Pardon?
I have this thumb that won't quit. It hurts and all of a sudden I'm going, what's wrong with it?
It could be that.
I have one of the red infrared.
Yeah, infrared mouses, yep. In the car, I was having this excruciating pain every time I went to San Diego. And it got worse on my trip back, so I knew it was the car. Going there, by the time I got there, it was sore. By the time I returned home to Malibu, 2.5 to 3 hour trip, I was aching. And it didn't go away until I woke the next morning, sometimes 2 days. So I had studied Nikon's magnetic pillows and beds and pads from 89 to 93, 92, and studied with people, experimenting with people and myself on their effects. And I found out mostly they were not good effects. For long term, for short terms, they seemed to be fine. So I would always tell people to use them in small doses, an hour a day. If you're using a bed, no more than 5 hours at a time, and no more than 3 days a week. I found it was beneficial for most people under those restrictions. So when it came to the car, I said, I'm not going to go to Nikon to make a pillow for me, because I don't know that it will work. Because I had some of theirs and they didn't work. So I designed my own based on some of their scientific research that I'd read extensively from their scientists. Because I went right to, when I started working with Nikon, I went right to their scientists and said with patterns and everything. So I made my own pillow.
The way Aajonus, I measured with my Gauss meter,
Uh-huh.
the accelerator on my car. Down by the accelerator, it's really high where you always have your right foot.
Exactly.
Yeah, with the
Yeah,
Gauss
so-
meter. Yeah.
This pillow helps reduce that. Now, you can see there's all kinds of sponge matter over these little magnets. And there's 3 concentric circles of magnets here. I just put them on. Somebody gave me this, so I decided on the
You don't
back
have to have that design.
make use of it. No, just get one of these, things that you weave into it. They're a little bit sturdier to glue onto, and you can use fabric glue to do it. These are each inch magnets. Now they have all this old foam on it because these were taken off of one of the Nikon mattresses that disintegrated after 10 years. So I took the magnets off a bit, and each one is flat. It goes north, south, north, south, north, south, all the way around. And what it does is, as that energy builds up in your system and your spine starts here, it starts pulling out excess electromagnetic field energy. So once I made this, the first time I used it, I had no discomfort in my legs at all. The first time I went to San Diego. I even drove all the way to Vegas, which is, near Vegas for gun training. And that was a 7-hour trip. No pain whatsoever, no discomfort. So it's very easy. Now, Kathy and Angelia are making these.
Oh,
And it doesn't matter. I have a Prius, which is an electric car. It's a hybrid car. Sometimes the electromagnetic field is higher in a hybrid, especially if it's a Honda. But if you have, a BMW or a Jaguar, no matter what kind of car you have, it's going to have anywhere from 50 to 100, 110, sometimes 120 milligauss in the driver's seat, especially at the foot pedal for the right leg. So the driver absolutely needs it. You can check the other seats in the car, and if you have children, in the back, then you can make one of these for them also. So what I do is just take a down pillow on either side. This is a little too thick, but I like it cushy. So I have this one is thinner, much thinner, and it goes on top. So I've got them, so this isn't directly on you, because when I use magnets, experimented with magnets directly against the body, it drew electromagnetic fields from your own body and lowered your energy level. So you can't have it right next to you. It has to be an inch and a half from your body, about an inch. So when you sit on this and crush it, you've got an inch between you and the magnet. So they have all the equipment now to make them. So if you want 1, 2, 3, or 4, whatever, they make them, and you can. People have been trying to get me to make them for years, and I don't have the time.
Do you sit on it or what?
Pardon?
Where does it go in the car?
You sit on it. Yeah, it's a pillow you sit on. If you like it at your back, fine, but it's the highest magnetic field is at the right foot, at the gas pedal. So it's best to sit on it. I tried it at the back, at my back, and it didn't work as well. Yeah.
So even though you sit on it, it handles the electromagnetism on your foot?
Yep, all through the leg. It draws the excess energy out here as it goes up to your spine. So it enters it leaves your body at the spinal cord, so it doesn't all go into your head, all into your brain.
Yay.
So, Aajonus, is that a ceramic magnet or neodymium?
No, these are metallic magnets.
Not neodymium.
No.
Are those too strong?
Pardon?
Neodymium magnets, are they too strong?
I think they're too mild.
Really?
Yeah. When I was experimenting with them, like Nikon makes some of those ceramic ones, and I found that they weren't as useful.
So could you also use this to like shield electromagnetic radiation from a phone? So put that in your lab.
From what?
The phone.
Could you use it for the purposes of shielding for a phone or?
For anything. Yeah. If you're directly exposed to the radiation, EMF fields. Electromagnetic field is what EMF stands for.
You have a pillow on either side.
Pardon?
You have a pillow on either side.
Yeah, pillow on either side so I can sit on either side. I don't want to get confused and end up sitting directly on the magnets.
Yeah.
If you're sitting at your computer, what can you do to help you shield yourself from the EMF?
Oh, what kind of computer do you have? Desktop or laptop?
Desktop, and I have a separate keyboard.
Well, all you have to do is make sure your computer is 3 feet away from your tower is 3 feet away. Has to be 3 feet away.
It's a laptop, and it's pushed about a couple feet away. And
Doesn't need to be that far. For the laptop, you've got 9 inches between the bottom of the laptop to the top of your keyboard. That's all it takes.
And when you say to alternate the magnets between positive and negative,
Right.
is that within the circle?
Yes.
Okay.
Each circle, they're rotated.
Doesn't stop radiation things.
Pardon?
Doesn't stop radiation things.
Not light. Not that kind of light.
Well, I mean from wireless communication.
It will help. It will help those two.
That goes through everything. Walls and everything else.
Absolutely.
What's that drink thing? Is that
It's milk. I just put it in I like to suck. So it's easy to suck out of something that's like a nipple. Remember, if you suck your milk, any fluid that you eat, if you suck it, you're going to get all the bacteria from your saliva. And that's where digestion starts. We have more bacteria in our mouths than cats and dogs. So don't bite anybody. Or else you'll start digesting them.
The phones have microwave, though, right? Do the magnets affect that at
A
all?
little only. Yeah. Very little.
The magnets affect it little, or is it only a little microwave?
No. This affects the microwave only a little.
And what about Wi-Fi? Is your computer
Same
on
thing, that's
Wi-Fi?
what she's saying, Wi-Fi. Yeah. It doesn't help it a lot. Only a little. Okay, we're going to start the Q&A now. Fred, you have a question.
Yes, I do. I've been doing weight loss for 5 weeks now. First 3 weeks I did okay, 3 pounds a week I lost. The next week it got really hot, so I drank a lot of milk principally, and I didn't lose anything.
You won't.
Yeah, and then this last week I lost only 2 pounds because I was cutting back on the milk, and I was drinking other things, though. I was drinking some water, drinking the whey, drinking like lemonade.
You're going to gain more weight if you do that.
Really?
Yeah.
So anyway, my question is, because there's more heat coming, I know, and I've just started doing the weight loss, and I'm going to get into the heat. So what should I do when it gets really hot? Because I die of thirst sometimes. I mean, I don't even get hungry if I do that. I mean, I'm just drinking milk all day, but I want to lose the weight and not wait till have to do it in the winter. Like last time I lost it, no problem. I went and lost about 30 pounds in a little over a month. But I probably did it in the winter. I don't remember when. But this time it's like harder, and I know it's going to be harder when it gets hot. So what?
You just have to suck.
I do. I only sip my
You're
milk.
gulping your food in your water.
My water, yeah, but the milk I only sip it.
Okay? If you're gulping your water, the same thing is going to happen. You're going to have water retention. And you won't lose the weight.
So as long as I sip the water and whey or anything else I drink?
Right. But you should keep it down to a minimum. You know, if you're sipping, if you're taking only a tablespoon at a time, you're not going to have the water retention. If you're sucking down 2 ounces at a time, let's say every 30, 40 minutes, you're going to have water retention. Too much water. I was just in a gun training course. Yeah, guns. Because I got, kidnapped and injected, and it's never going to happen again. Anybody tries to do that again, I'm going to shoot them dead. So I've been through several gun trainings now, and I was just in one last week. Up to last Tuesday, and it was 105, 108 degrees in the high desert outside of Las Vegas, where front sight exists. And what I did was to quench my thirst. Everybody's sucking water like crazy, and that is there's a nuclear plant near there, and everybody was turning red, and from drinking the water. So I wasn't about to touch it anyway. I did drink a cup of water a day, sometimes 2 cups of water a day, when I had to ration my milk, because I couldn't get milk out there, and I only took enough for 2 quarts a day when I should have taken for 3 quarts a day. So what I did was I took slices of watermelon equaling about 2 ounces each, and I would eat a section of that about every hour and a half to 2 hours. That took care of me, as well as my milk and a little bit of water. Of course, I had had the water only a tablespoon at a time all throughout the day. So I didn't bloat. I didn't have a problem. One time, I just got so hot that I took the water and I poured their water, and not the Gerolstein, the regular water, and I poured it over my head and rinsed my face off. I burned.
Wow.
Burned from it. So there's radiation in that water.
Wow.
So I actually burned, and I didn't burn and I didn't put the water on any other time. But it burned all my skin on my face, not on my neck because I didn't put it back here, but all up here, all on my face, in the front of my neck, burned. And it wasn't a normal sunburn because I was wearing a very large brimmed hat, to shield a lot of sun. But on the fifth day when I did that, I burned. I woke up the next morning. Well, no, it was even that evening I felt the burn. When I woke the next morning, it was a burn. And it wasn't a sunburn. It was a radiation burn. But the point about the water and the liquid intake is you only have a sip at a time. If I had milk, ounce at a time only. Maybe every 35, 40 minutes. Water, a tablespoon every hour. Watermelon was my main thirst quencher. And there's nothing that quenches thirst like watermelon. Of course, I didn't eat the heart. I ate, outside from where the seeds end, from there all the way through the rind. Not the green part, but the white rind. And that took care of all of my thirst needs. If I had had my 3 quarts of milk instead of 2, I wouldn't have had that much water. I'd probably have only had maybe a half a cup, 3/4 of a cup of water. Now, I noticed when I was drinking only the milk, and one day I did have 3 quarts, my saliva got very thick and I could barely expectorate. So that's when I realized that I still needed a little water. So that's when I went to start having a cup a day. But by the time I got down to the end, I was having my last 2 days, I had 1.5 quarts each day of milk. So I had increased my water intake or watermelon intake. I didn't have enough watermelon. And by the time we start class in the morning till we finish, we had night classes even. So I didn't get to get back into town to get to a market to get more watermelon. So I will be better prepared next time. But just so you know, even the milk you have to sip a little at a time. The water you sip a little at a time.
How far in between sips? Can I do a sip a minute?
Oh, God, no. That's way too often. You don't need it that much. If your mouth gets dry, just remember that the honey has an ester in it, an oil ester that will coat your lips and your tongue much longer. So just take a little bit, or a thick amount, put it on your lips. As you lick it a little bit, it'll keep your whole mouth and tongue moist. So you won't be drinking. Because that dry mouth is not a water deficiency. It is a lipid deficiency because we discard a lot of toxins through the gums and the tongue. That takes a lot of fat out of the face and out of the mouth. That's what needs replacing. So a little touch of butter, a little touch of honey. If you're in a hot desert, you don't want to put butter on your lips very often because it'll turn very acidic. Put honey on your lips. Put a little butter on your tongue. And just let it absorb into your tongue and to your palate. And then you won't be drinking all of that fluid.
So what's the nearest time, what's the minimum time in between sips I could take? Every 5 minutes, 10 minutes?
No, I'd say 20 minutes.
20 minutes.
Yeah.
Even if you're doing like physical work and you're sweating like a pig out in the
No,
hot sun?
if you're doing it that often, you do it every 7 to 10 minutes.
Okay. All right, thanks.
You're welcome. Louis.
Yes. I've discussed with you when a muscle becomes hyperextended. At least that's what I believe it is. If I notice a little clicking around my abductor muscles near the groin area, I take it that's what it is. If I worked it out recently. Anyway, do you have any suggestions besides soaking in hot water?
What are the symptoms? What kind of discomfort?
Okay. For a while it felt sore when I'm lying on my back and just lifting my head up. It felt sore here. Other times if I've done a lot of walking, feels like it's on occasions. For a while it sounds like it's clicking.
Yeah. Does it feel dry and discomforting at the same time, or just sound?
More a sound. Well, as far as any feeling, it might feel. No, the only feeling on occasions a little sore.
Sounds like the lymph system isn't functioning in that area very well. Those lymph glands may be blocked. So you put a hot water bottle there. If you've got any kind of localized pain anywhere, hot water bottles. Not a hot bath. Hot bath takes care of the whole body. If you have a localized pain, you need to put a hot water bottle on that area for the whole night. Mm-hmm. And if you wrap your hot water bottle in like a flannel pillowcase, it will stay warm. It'll stay hot and warm, start cooling somewhere around 7 to 8 hours later. So that's a lot of time.
Flannel pillowcase.
Right. So just apply that there. Do you have a question?
Yeah, I think you answered it, though. My question was, I've been traveling a lot and I'm unable to do the diet as much as I was before. So when I got back here, I started to just do my regular prescribed amounts of everything, and I would find that my mouth was, I felt like I could just drink, I can't say notion because that's salty, but I was, like so thirsty. But
if you were off the diet and eating a lot of processed foods, then you would have needed a lot more water to wash as a solvent to flush out and break down those toxins.
Oh.
So,
Well, water.
Yeah, you need a little bit more. Normally I tell people half a cup of water, unless you're an athlete or doing sports, you need a cup a day. If you're not into activity or sports, half a cup a day. I'm lucky if I have 2 cups a month. But I've been on the diet longer. I don't need as many solvents to help dissolve, industrial toxicity. And that's what water is. Water is a solvent. Still. And another thing I found out about carbonated waters, not just Gerolsteiner, is that it, for some reason, lowers the libido. So it lowers sexual activity.
Water?
Carbonated. Carbonated water. So I've come to the point now when I'm in Thailand with my girlfriend, I don't drink carbonated water. I'll take the carbonated water and shake the carbon out of it. Because the non-carbonated waters have cost just as much as the non-carbonated when they're in glass. So I trust the carbonated ones better than I do the non-carbonated ones. Because natural carbonation is like a natural hydrogen peroxide. It destroys any bacteria that will normally exist. So companies do not have to add anything to pass inspection. Mountain Valley ozonates theirs, and a lot of these companies process them. When you have a naturally carbonated water, it does not need any processing. You just shake the carbon out of it. It's fine. Started about 15 years ago. Okay, do you have a question?
Yeah. You told me about the clay. You hate the clay because of my vaginal problems. And I have, and I noticed it's pretty good. But it's still in that area. It feels really like something scratching inside. No, even though I've been taking the clay. Should I do something else in addition to the clay?
She's having some vaginal discomfort, and that's usually the women have the ability to throw many toxins out of the female organs. Even the period is a heavy detox of many different things. So when you have that kind of ability to discharge, a lot of poisons are going to be going out those tissues. She's saying that she's having some kind of a tightness there, some kind of a brittle feeling. Yeah. So she's not getting enough fats for the amount of toxins that are dumping out that area. So it would be best to take some kefir or some plain milk that's warm, about 105 degrees, and just inject 2 or 3 ounces of that and lie down for 20 minutes and then let it flush out if it doesn't absorb. But most of the time it will absorb. Now, if you have a low mucus formation in the vaginal area, you need to do it with a milkshake, not with plain milk. So you have to have egg in it, you have to have a little extra cream with the milk. Because the body cannot form a lot of mucus simply with milk. It takes egg and extra cream with the milk to do it. Like this gentleman here had a lot of asthma type reactions recently, and that just tells me he's not producing enough mucus in his sinuses. So I say have milkshakes, 2-3 a day until it settles, and it's working. It always works.
So I can do both.
Yeah, I would say if you're having dryness like that, you're not producing enough mucus, therefore you need the milkshake in there instead of just milk. Sometimes kefir will do it if it's a naturally formed kefir, not from grains. You can produce mucus from it because the body has pre-digested it and those tissues can use it. But it usually takes a concentrated protein from the egg white and the egg yolk combined with the milk to really be strong, to strongly produce enough mucus to protect you. Okay? Do you have a question?
I do. Hair loss.
Hair loss. That's a difficult one. I lost a lot of hair after those injections 2 years ago, April, and it's growing back again. Putting butter or bone marrow on the scalp will help protect those follicles and help regrow sometimes. But whenever you have hair loss, it occurs with usually people who have a lot of testosterone. Even in women that have a lot of testosterone. What happens is the body uses the testosterone to detoxify. So we'll grab mercury out of the brain, thallium, lead, anything that's in the brain. And remember, those are more concentrated in the nervous system and brain because the brain uses those metallic minerals to conduct electricity and transfer light. So metallic minerals are the strongest in concentration in the brain and nervous system. So when the brain throws it off, it throws it out through the scalp, damages the follicles. So all you can do is try to protect it. Men and women who are high in testosterone can detoxify more at one time because of the high rate of fat and protein in the testosterone molecules. So it takes those out, and if you don't have the highest quality fats, and I mean concentrated fat, and you're very fat, it's likely you're going to lose hair. If it is thimerosal from vaccine injections, even if you're very overweight, you're still going to lose hair. It's going to damage the follicles. Chemotherapy is a high poison that will cause it in anybody. Testosterone won't have anything to do with that kind of chemical contamination, follicle damage. But the best thing to do is to lubricate the scalp so that the fats to get down into the molecule, down into the follicle to try and protect it as the body builds those toxic metals into the hair to get rid of them.
So what do you have to get the bone marrow and kind of like grind it up? Or?
No. You just take it and let some get room temperature and warm, the softer ones. And then let it get warm, or put it in a little jar and immerse it in a bowl of hot water and let it get very soft. And then rub it into your fingers, lightly, not wet. And you just separate your hair and then brush it into the scalp, rub it into the scalp so your hair isn't too oily.
How long do you leave it on for? Like,
Leave it. Don't rinse it out until the next time you take a shower or bath. If you're using butter, if you're using bone marrow, it's best to take the bone marrow out of the bone as soon as you get it and put it in those 4-ounce jelly jars. In the bone marrow would decay faster and age and become high faster. If you pop those out of the bone as soon as you get them and put them in a jar, they last a long time. They'll last weeks or a month. Yeah, so if you leave it in the bone, it'll turn brown and rancid quickly. Okay? So that's what I do. I pop it out, and then you put it in the jar and make it warm. I leave all mine out 8 hours before I eat them anyway, so everything's room temperature, my meat, my milk, everything. So if I want to do that, rub it thinly on and rub it in. It won't stink. Now, butter, one time I went to a Board of Supervisors meeting downtown when I was doing the milk issue in 2000, from 1997 to 2001. I went to a board meeting, and it was a specialized one. We were all around the big table, and after about halfway through, somebody says, "Okay, who's got the butter cookies?" Because I had used the butter, fresh, warm butter. Thank you very much. So fresh, warm butter on my scalp and on my skin. So I didn't tell them who had the butter cookies. But, it doesn't really smell that bad after it's been on you, unless you're out doing some kind of sports in the sun. Then the bone marrow might turn a little off. But if you're not putting too much on and you're just using enough to be absorbed into the skin after an hour, it's not going to stink. And again, you're not putting it on the hair except for maybe about that much of the hair, because you're spreading the hair apart and you're rubbing it in. Spreading the hair apart, rubbing it in, those areas. Okay?
So,
Are you saying? I'm sorry.
you use the butter and the bone marrow together? Or just
That's good. You can do that. I make that mixture when I give massages. And I will use that for my scalp too. But I'm not as vain, so I don't do it very often.
You say you store the bone marrow after you pop it out of the bone in the jar.
No, I pop it out of the bone marrow and put it in those little 4-ounce jars, jelly jars, and then put it in the refrigerator.
That's what I asked you. You extract the bone marrow from the bone first, then you store it in the jar.
Yes, then I put it in the jars. Yes. And then it goes in the refrigerator.
Gotcha.
Okay?
I
Yes.
was over there. I couldn't hear you when you were first talking about the hair loss. Did you say anything about coconut cream?
No.
Okay.
Coconut cream won't protect the follicles. It'll help detoxify more poisons through the scalp and out of the scalp, but it won't really protect it from hair loss.
So you're talking about bone marrow and butter.
Bone marrow and butter are your best protection. Do you have a question?
I have osteoporosis, or did, I don't know. Been 2 years on the diet, and I'm doing the 8 ounces of green juice a day. Celery, carrot, cucumber, zucchini.
That doesn't help osteoporosis.
Right, but this is...
Those vegetable juices add minerals and enzymes and vitamins for digestive purposes. So your vegetable juice in the morning will help get your digestion going and also give you more electrolytes to get your body functioning. When you want to restore bone, if you have osteoporosis, that's what she has, you need to eat cheese with honey after each meat meal. And I usually recommend if somebody has osteoporosis, 2 tablespoons of cheese, raw, no salt cheese, with about 2 teaspoons of honey maximum. You can cut it down to 1 teaspoon per 2 tablespoons of cheese. A small amount of honey is all it takes. That way you will digest the minerals in the cheese, and you cannot get any higher concentration of minerals than you can in raw no salt cheese. So that's your best mineral supplement.
So my question on the juice was, can you change the proportions or the...
Well, it depends. I give each person different proportion if they come to me individually. Are you having cucumber puree? Okay, then you're doing fine. The only way I would change it for you if you come to see me and I found that it should be different. And I recommend that people who are on the diet come and see me once a year just to make sure that everything is going well. Because I find that people are detoxifying something differently than they had been, a year or 2 before when I had seen them. And they're not keeping up with that. They're taking care of something that doesn't need to be taken care of as much as something that they're detoxifying now. Let me give you an example of how well it works if you come to see me every year. I had a woman that came to see me 3 years ago in Chicago. Toes and hands like this, a baseball-sized mineral deposit on her elbow, knees blown out about the size of a soccer ball, especially the left one. So after 2 years, she came back to me. She was standing for the first time with a walker. Couldn't walk but maybe 30 seconds a minute with a walker at that time, but still that was progress. That was after 2 years on the diet. And her fingers were stretched out. She could utilize her hands and fingers then after 2 years. Very efficiently. Didn't look like she had any real big problems, although she had huge knuckle joints everywhere. And the last year I said to her husband, he was a big, strong guy, I said, listen, she needs the hot baths every day. If you'll give her the hot baths every day, 90 minutes of a hot bath every day, we will get those mineral deposits out quickly because we'll get the lymphatic system working. So I said, now I want to see you walking next year. She came in a wheelchair and I said, you're not walking. She says, but I can. I can walk 7 minutes now. After 6 years of not playing cards with her friends because she couldn't handle the cards and she couldn't sit there because of her pain, she was back to playing cards. And all of her card friends oh, it's a dangerous diet, crazy diet, don't do that diet, don't do that diet. And now she's back to playing cards and walking, and her knees are perfect shape, hands, all that bump went down in a year. That whole hardball-sized growth of minerals, which they called calcium deposit, was gone in a year from doing those hot baths and coming to me and me adjusting her diet every year. It works beautifully. You can move through things so much quicker if you will come to see me. Okay?
Just one more question about osteoporosis. If you just eat meat and chicken and not cheese and honey, will you still get there, or slower, or not at all?
It will take you 30 years to reverse it. You can't get that concentration of minerals because your body's going to be using the minerals in your juice and your meat to handle digestion and whatever metabolism you have. There's not enough to rebuild bone. And just remember that whenever you have a toxic substance in your body uses alkalinizing minerals like calcium, phosphorus, potassium, and magnesium to bind with those. Let's say you've got a molecule of mercury. Your body may use 20 calcium molecules, about 10 magnesium molecules, anywhere from 5 to 30 potassium molecules, and an innumerable amount of potassium molecules to bind with one molecule of mercury. That would just pass out of the body. That's how many minerals you'll lose if you're just removing one molecule of mercury. So you have to, and then the fats that have to go along with that can be anywhere from 50 to 200 molecules of fat. So you have to understand that industrial toxins cause huge deficiencies, and all the diseases. Even cooking foods is an industrial process. So you have to understand that just the mere taking of vegetable juice and eating meat is not going to restore your bones, but very, very, very slowly, if you're not too contaminated. But if you have osteoporosis, that's a sign you're very contaminated because your body has used your bone minerals to bind with those poisons and neutralize them to get them out of the body. Do you have a question?
Yeah. About a year ago, I started playing basketball on a weekly basis, and after a while of playing it, I had an inner ear problem where it would kind of go on and off, where I could, when you're on an airplane, it kind of gets stuffed up, and it would kind of stuff up and then unstuff, and it was kind of until a while of not being so physical, and I still have it like when I run. So is there something I could do about that?
Well, that's a fluid deficiency. Usually when you're playing, it's too much water gets into the ear. But overall in the body, you've got a water deficiency. When you're eating raw foods, all of your electrolytes, all of your minerals, and all of your nutrients, whether vitamins, enzymes, water-soluble fats, or fat-soluble fats, no matter what they are, they're always bound with the water molecules, H2O. Once you cook something, you've fractionated that. The electrolytes dissipate, and those bonds between the water and the nutrients are all separated. That's why when you cook something, you see all the water separate. Whether you're cooking meat or whether you're cooking vegetables, the water separates. So you can no longer transport the water properly with the nutrients to your cells. So cells get deficient. If you're eating raw foods, 100% of all of the H2O in that food is entirely cellularly absorbable. 100%. And all foods are about 90% water, except for meats, and they are 55 to 70% water. That's a lot of water. That's all the water we need. That's why most of the time I don't drink water. A cup or two a month. But I'm cleaner also. I don't need water every day like I used to. But you only need a small amount of plain solvent reactive water. Most people need nutrient-bound water.
Talking about that, what, like cucumbers with a little water, maybe some lemon, won't that give you the electrolytes that you needed like you were out there?
Yeah.
So that would be a good idea?
Yeah, but I have the sport drink for that. And sport drink is good. I mean, but I was out in the desert. I was shooting a gun, standing shooting a gun most of the time. You know, when there were obstacle courses, they were mild obstacle courses for no more than 10, 15 minutes. So it was a lot of exercise, just a lot of heat. Had I been in exercise, heavy exercise, I would have had the sport drink. Okay.
Not a commercial one, but yours.
My sport drink, of course. My sport drink is like 1 cup of whey, 1 cup of watermelon puree, 1 cup of tomato puree. Or you could do cucumber and watermelon purees instead of tomato and watermelon. You could do tomato and cucumber instead of watermelon and tomato, or watermelon and whatever. You can use those three. They're interchangeable. The cucumber, the tomato, and the watermelon. And they all can be combined, too.
And what lemon? The lemon, you okay with it or not?
Yeah, but I'm getting to that.
Oh, okay.
So we have 2 tablespoons of lemon juice, 2 teaspoons of lime juice, 1 tablespoon of apple cider vinegar, raw apple cider vinegar, 1 to 2 tablespoons of honey, 1 to 2 tablespoons of coconut cream, and 1 to 2 tablespoons of dairy cream. If you're an intense athlete like a basketball player or a runner or a tennis player, you're going to need 2 to 4 tablespoons of cream. You blend all that, and also you can put a half a cup of sparkling mineral water and then blend it all together. And you sip on that throughout the whole time. Now I have champion tennis players. Last year, the 2 high school tennis champions were started on the diet at 8 and 9 years old, the male and female. And they would take 1 liter, 1 quart of that sport drink out with them for 5 hours of tennis play. And their opponents are guzzling down, like a gallon of water in 5 hours. And they get weakened. So my players are out there with that sport drink and those electrolytes and just can't stop them. Water will stop you, slow you down, because it leaches nutrients out of your body. It will wear your body down. Okay, so just to add some good sport drinks to your activity, and eat more raw foods, of course. Okay, yes.
And that was 1 cup of whey with then the other things that you listed?
1 cup of whey, 1 cup of one of the or 2 of each of watermelon, tomato, or cucumber. 1 cup of each. There's 3 cups of those with all those little ingredients. So it makes about a quart.
3 cups.
Okay, do you have a question?
I do. I'm a little curious on how to take care of a cat that would get sick, if it were to get sick.
She's asking about what do I do with a cat that gets sick. Shoot it.
The cat that you love.
Well, cats are the most difficult. Dogs and cats have a tendency to fast when they get ill. So it's not easy to feed them. But you want to help them. Mix some honey and butter. 6 parts butter to 1 part honey, and you make them put that on their tongue. You open their mouth and you put it in their mouth. They will eat it, even though they don't want to. And that is the only thing that I found that promotes cats to getting better without them getting too irritated and vomiting all over the place. Once in a while, they will still vomit because they're constantly, even when they're sick, cleaning their hair, and they're swallowing hairballs. So even if they're sick, they're going to be vomiting that. So it doesn't have anything to do with the honey and butter. Okay? Do you have a question?
Yeah, wanted to know any suggestions you might have since I had recent hospitalization with major surgery and all this stuff, antibiotics, whatever the hell else they put in there. Just, kind of what toe in the water to start in the right direction of bypassing all of that and recovering the body.
TV station or the police? It's a lightweight helicopter, so it's probably a TV station. Okay, she asked, she just got out of surgery and a lot of chemicals, a lot of,
Major
medical
antibiotics,
all of that. What can she do to get herself on the right track? Milkshakes and cheese, milkshake and cheese, lots of eggs. So let's say 2 milkshakes a day, and let's say 8 to 10 eggs a day, and 1 meat meal. Cheese every 20 minutes. Just a half a teaspoon to a quarter to a half a teaspoon of cheese every 20 minutes. Keep absorbing the poisons. Have a train of the cheese going through. Okay. And a little bit of food at a time, because if you have had antibiotics, you destroy the digestive tract first. And remember, we are 150 bacterial genes to every 1 human gene. We're not even 1% human. So bacteria, antibiotics are one of the worst things that you can give anybody when they're sick, because they will not get well. They will stay in a disease state and grow more into a disease state from antibiotics. So that's the way to help pull those poisons out of the system. And the mucus from the milkshakes will help carry it out your mucous membranes. Okay? Hot baths. You've got the weight, 90-minute baths, 105 degrees. If you're getting flushed and you don't feel like staying in the bath that long, take an ice pack, one of those cloth ice packs that looks like a full yarmulke. Put that on top of your head and cool your brain. The brain is the only thing that does not like to get hot. The body loves to get hot. So you get that brain cold, that body will want to stay in the hot water. So you only leave it on until you're uncomfortable and the body wants to stay in the water. Don't leave it on there to get brain freeze. Okay?
The water gets cooler and cooler, right? So
you get a hot tub, or every 20 minutes you let 2 inches out of the bath, and then when and you have got the water going down, and the last inch you turn on only the hot water. Put your hands there to funnel the cold water right down the drain. Once the water gets hot, then you put the plug back on or flip it, however it works, and then you stir the water around until it gets 105, 108 degrees. It takes 20 minutes for it to lower. If you first fill the bath halfway with scalding water, let it sit in there for 10, 12 minutes. It will heat the entire tub. Then you put lukewarm water in to bring it up to about 112. Then you put your milk, your vinegar, and your clay, and your mineral salts like raw, no salt, like salt, like sun-dried sea salt. Put that in the water. Let that sit in there for 7 minutes, and then you get in. Then every 20 minutes you have to reheat it. So in a 40-minute period, you only have to reheat it once. And in a 90-minute period, you'll have to do it 3 times. Not so bad. Okay. Question?
I'm just beginning
Okay.
to look into the raw food. I've been eating bison and radiosport, so I'm just a beginner. So
Okay.
I'm very good.
Good. All right. Do you have a question?
Well, I lost a tooth because it broke. Kept it in there 3 years, but finally had to get it out, right? And I don't know what to put back in it. For one thing, it's terribly expensive. anything you think of, you know.
In it?
You know, a new tooth.
Well, you still have a tooth, or there's no tooth
No,
there?
there's no tooth there. It's gone.
I say get a flapper.
I know. So a flapper, that's just the thing you put in. Like,
A little spacer thing?
oh, I see. I was
just
hoping
lost
to get
this
something
one
more permanent.
2 months ago.
There's nothing, really. So there's nothing else that's safe that you can put in there? Even,
You can get a bridge. You'll grind the two, you know, the teeth and the bone teeth on either side. You grind them down, and then you're losing half of those teeth.
Do all dentists know what a flapper is?
We each have the same flapper.
Are they toxic?
No, those are pretty solid plastic. They're not an outgassing plastic. Of course, I soak mine in lemon juice for 24 hours.
Is it plastic or porcelain?
It's a plastic. Well, the tooth porcelain, but this is plastic. I think it's plastic.
Yeah.
I think it's plastic. Yeah.
And what about the other material on there? Is that toxic?
Oh, this?
No. Other stuff that you got on the flapper.
No, that's just my food from eating.
I mean, like the metal rod? Yeah, whatever it is. Is it metal that's holding this inside?
No, it's fired together.
so, Aajonus told me I could have this one tooth ground down because this is a small space, so they could put the bridge in just with grinding one tooth down, which I'm considering. But even zirconia screws or anything like that is absolutely not okay, huh?
Well, I don't want to do it because there's someone in Thailand at 90 years old that drew his third set of teeth. If you go drill something in, you're not going to have that ability.
Oh, you might grow another tooth?
Right. So I'm looking at 90 years old to put my third teeth in. Almost all your tribes grow a third set of teeth between 90 and 110.
Really?
So there's only been one documented, and that's only because there was a Chinese doctor that handled the guy in Thailand. That's the only reason it got publicized. It went in 2 papers, non-existent. Nobody ever hears about it again because the medical profession does not want you to know.
Right.
And this guy lives on bugs and oysters and stuff like that. Oyster farmer in Thailand. Lived on bugs and oysters.
Okay. Well, if that happens, that's great.
He lost all of his teeth at 60 years old.
Wow.
And at 90, he grew his next set of teeth back, so he was able to eat all the things he couldn't eat.
Maybe because at one time bodies are supposed to live longer, and so you just got your third set of teeth when you're 90, it'd take you another 40 years or something?
Yeah.
It's possible.
Absolutely.
So, but I've heard that the zirconia is not toxic like the titanium.
Doesn't matter. Well, if you don't mind, you know, if you
I
say...
don't know if I want to wait till 90, but
Yeah, that's up to you.
So what do you think about that? Do you think it's very toxic?
I've read some research. They thought titanium was okay. Now the research in the last 2 years, now that people have had a lot of titanium, they've seen that it causes a lot of problems. You know, so the only thing I would say would be non-toxic was to get a piece of bone from a buffalo or something like that and have that made into a screw and inserted. That's the only thing I would ever... That's what I would do if I were going to do it. And I've seen people who've done it.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right.
They sculpted it into a screw, and then the dentist screwed it right in.
It's like your bone. Yeah. It wouldn't be so rejected by the body.
Wouldn't be rejected at all. At least I've never seen it rejected.
No guarantee on growing horns, she said.
Okay, do you have a question?
Yes, I have a question about last year I had a couple of, I had 5 CT scans, 2 MRIs with gadolinium, and an X-ray this year, and I'm wondering what I should do to detox from that crap.
Well, that's a lot of stuff to go through. Are you a subscriber to my newsletter?
No, I haven't.
subscribe to it. I've got the things to do to reverse radiation and to handle X-ray toxicity. And in my book, We Want to Live, how to remove radiation, those things too.
I guess is there a time limit? Does it matter when you start this detox? I mean,
it's going to be there forever. You'll be with it all of your life unless you get those contrasts out of your body. Because once radioactively charged, they can live 500,000 years, 50 to 500,000 years. Even the iodine, if it happens to mix with uranium in your body, even if it's only one molecule, and that's charged with radiation, it could be 500 million years. So unless you can get it out of the body, it's going to be in your body till you die. Oh yeah, a lot of trouble. Keeping you from regenerating cells, causing a lot of byproduct toxicity. A lot of acrylamides, heterocyclic amines, lipid peroxides, all kinds of byproduct toxins. Clay is the best way to remove it. So you take 1.25 cups of clay to 1 cup of water. Put that in a 2-cup jelly jar. Now, 1/4 cup and 1 cup sounds like, well, that's 2 1/4 cup. How's it going to fit in a 2-cup jar? Because there's a lot of air space in clay. Once you mix it, it's going to go reduce down to maybe even lower than 2 cups. You have to add a little bit more clay and a little bit more water. But it should be of the consistency of fresh-made plaster of Paris. Then you let that sit. You can start using it right away. But best thing to do if you've had that kind of radiation therapy is to break up radiation therapy, because it is radioactive therapy. When you're using it that much as a diagnostic tool, it becomes a therapy, damaging your body that much. I suggest you use 1 teaspoon 3 times a day of that liquid, that moistened clay, in 2 ounces of milk. 3 ounces of milk probably be a little bit better for you. Most people, if they didn't have that kind of radiation exposure and contrast, 1 tablespoon a day and 4 ounces of milk.
Can I use a sauna instead of a hot bath, or does that not replace a hot bath?
Doesn't replace it at all. That'll be a whole question, because it is very different. That'll be your question, so I'm going to go into it. When you have airspace around you, you've got an airspace of control from your body that's a whole foot to 14 inches away. When you have water next to your body, you only have an inch and a half. You'll notice that when you're in hot water and you don't move for 5 minutes, it starts feeling cool, because your body has mediated the temperature between the water and your body. Then you move a little bit, and all you have to do is move, and you can feel the heat right away. When you're in a sauna, you have to move around to move out of that 12 to 14 inch space to feel the heat again. So when your body can be cooled with that much distance, it's not a good thing. The water heat is direct and constant, close. Air produces too much space. Steam bath the same way. Plus, the steam in the sauna gets so high that they will damage your mucous membranes, your sinuses, your eyes, your nose, your throat, your lungs, your bronchioles. All will be damaged with that high of heat. And then you'll stop producing mucus. You'll start having allergies as you get older. You'll start having sinus congestion a lot, nasal drip, all kinds of problems for people who regularly go into saunas and steam baths. Hot tubs are the best thing where the temperature is constant.
I didn't hear the last thing you said to the question before. You said something about putting did you say a teaspoon or tablespoon of clay in milk? Or
Yeah, tablespoon of clay a day in 4 ounces of milk.
And you drink it?
Yeah,
and
drink
that's just for normal radiation. That's
Right.
Okay, good. Tablespoon.
And we don't have normal radiation with this, this Fukushima thing. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
I take a pinch of clay and I'll put it in here.
Oh.
In every milk I drink, in every liquid I drink, I put a pinch of the clay in it.
Theremin clay.
Theremin clay, yeah.
Okay.
What kind of clay?
Theremin.
What is the bentonite?
Well, they call it bentonite, but it isn't real. Bentonite mainly is from volcano ash. But theremin is from the Mojave Desert, and it's mined from an old thermal aqua bed.
So that's better than
Well, if you get it from lava, what do you have? Molten lava. You have molten metals, predominantly.
Glass.
Pardon?
A lot of glass too.
Yeah, absolutely.
What about charcoal? Does that do the same thing or no?
Not the same, and depends on where you get the charcoal from. But that's a whole different subject.
You said 4 ounces of milk.
Right. But for her, I said a teaspoon 3 times a day and 2 ounces of milk.
Right.
So when you're putting just a pinch in, is that just the dry theremin clay, or is that clay that's been moistened?
Either. If it's moistened, it's going to turn your milk a little off, like high meats, for some reason. If you put the powdered in, it won't do that. Okay, Maureen, do you have a question?
Yeah. Let's see.
Mari.
To refresh your memory, I have a lot of radioactivity, uranium, and heavy metals from lab work.
I know you're a laboratory rat. I remember.
Yeah. That was a past life story. But anyway, right now I'm noticing that
She works in a laboratory. That's what I meant by that.
I'm having some neurological problems that are developing. I'm a neuroscientist and I'm observing myself, getting some problems. And it's also with heavier hair loss. So I know that there's a lot coming through my scalp. But I'm noticing I'm becoming like ADD and dyslexic. My attention span is getting shorter. My memory has become very bad. A lot of things are getting better, but this is getting a little bit worse progressively.
Are you having your vegetable juice?
Yes, I have vegetable juice every morning.
Okay.
I'm having trouble reading, which is getting a little bit worse, and comprehension. I'm becoming a poor listener. And I'm starting to invert numbers when I'm copying them down. It's like, anyway.
Yeah. Well, all that contamination you have from formaldehyde and everything that's absorbed into your body is in your brain. And as it moves, it's going to cause more damage. Now that you have a good weight on you, you should have less of that. But the brain, there's less circulation into brain, other areas, unless you sleep on a slant. So if you want to, you could put a pie-shaped board or some kind of something to raise your feet up so your head is down. So in the night, you get more flush into the brain. But you have to eat a meat meal before you go to sleep at night. And you can use sour cream with your meat and or butter. But don't use fresh cream with your meat ever. Your problem. Don't use fresh cream with meat because it will coat it and it won't digest more than half of it usually. If you're eating sour cream, the sour cream's already broken down and there isn't a lot of digestive process. Raw cream is very difficult, complicated to digest. It requires 60 varieties of biome to make 60 varieties of fats, of cholesterol, to do all of the chores. Butter only requires about a third of that, or 50, third to 50% that. so butter is much easier to digest. Sour cream is a good thing for the brain because there's nothing that feeds the brain, no fat feeds the brain, the nervous system better than raw cream. But when you eat it with the meat, it's very difficult unless it is already pre-digested as sour cream. Okay? And also you need the clay with the milk to help protect, your brain and the follicles. Okay, you're welcome. Do you have a question?
Yes, I was going to ask you, I had some excruciating back pain a couple months ago. And I just wanted, I could barely walk. One day I had to sort of just lay for about an hour on bed. And I know at times I detox, I get a lot of berries or coconut cream or different things. Is this something I could do so I don't have to suffer for those 3-4 days?
Yeah, the same way that I help my back and Barbara helps her back, hot baths. You may have to get in it several times a day. Maybe 2 or 3 90-minute baths, or 5 45-minute baths, something like that. And then when you're lying down sleeping, you can line the back with hot water bottles, 2 hot water bottles along your spine. Also help. The heat is the important thing. When you have got your spinal cord, you've got all of those vertebrae, so hard bone. Then you've got the cartilage between them. Then you have all of these tendons and ligaments. Putting it all together, that's all tight and solid. Whenever you have pain, it's swelling. Your body's increased the flow of blood and lymph and neurological fluids to help cleanse the area and rebuild it. So that's the swelling puts the pressure on the nerves. That's pain. If you take a hot bath, put hot water bottles at your spine, it will relax all of those, the tendons and the ligaments. You will be able to expand and relax the nervous system so it will have space for the swelling, for the increased nutrient. That's all there is to it.
What was happening? Just come out of the blue and then, these 3-4 days and then
Yep, you were just heavily detoxing something out of the spinal cord. Could have been anything from just tin, from canned food waste, or vaccines.
What I experienced when people, they say 80% of the population has some kind of back problem. When you get these back things, is it similar to detox?
It's always that. You remember when people had tonsillitis and polio in the 50s? They came from canned foods. Canned foods came out in 47. It came out earlier than that, but it really caught on in 47, the year I was born. And they brought it in. The King and Queen of England helped get the World War II going over the whole planet because they own 70% of all food manufacturing in the world. So they wanted canned foods to catch on. So the whole, even though it's completely inane and incongruous and anything else you can describe to the issue was support your loved ones fighting the war. Eat canned food. That was the whole motto that was going on at that time. Now, my mother jumped on it, like a hotcake because she loved not having to wash the vegetables, not having to slice them. Everything was pre-prepared in the can. All she had to do was open a can, dump it into a pot, and cook it. She loved it, absolutely adored it. So that's all we ate was canned food. The only thing that wasn't canned was meat. However, canned tuna, some canned pork, that may have been soaked in pineapple and cloves in the can already, which is even worse for getting metal poisons out. Anyway, that whole generation in the 50s and early 60s was contaminated by the metal waste in their spinal cords and in their tonsils. That's why the tonsillitis and the polio epidemics of the 50s and 60s. So what did the King and Queen of England do? plastics. You remember the first time we heard majorly of plastics? Anybody remember what movie that was?
The Graduate?
The Graduate. That's it. 1962.
1967.
67. But the screenplay was written back in the early 60s by someone who was in the elitist crowd that knew the King and Queen of England, started coating the cans in their countries, not in America, in other countries with plastic. They'd spray plastic inside. Of course, that created a mixture of, that created a lot more homosexuals and a lot more lesbians, because it created a crossing of genders. It disturbs the female and male hormone activity. And I don't think that there's anything wrong with homosexuality at all. If that's your thing, that's your thing. It's a physiological thing, a biochemical thing. It's not a choice. So if that's the way you are, that's the way you are. But more of it came from that. If you look online now, you'll look up male and female hormonal disruption, especially female hormones, from plastics. So they just traded one illness for another.
Yeah.
The King and Queen of England still own, that family still owns 70% of all food production in the world. Plus they own 35% of all the land in the world. Richest family in the world and most powerful. Okay. Do you have a question, Roger?
Yes. What about stevia? Is that...
Stevia is a leaf. It's a vegetable. You won't digest it well. It sure is a sugar substitute, but it's not a healthy one. No, it's not poisonous like that, but it won't digest very well, and it can cause it. Yeah. It will interfere with digestion of other food.
It what?
It will interfere with digestion of food. Honey is the best thing to use. Dates are the best thing to use to sweeten your food.
Honey, of course, has a lot of calories.
No, it doesn't. When the bee collects the nectar, it swallows the nectar and it pre-digests it. It converts 90% of the sugars into enzymes for digesting fats and proteins. So it's only 10% sugar. And stevia is 8 to 9% sugar, so it's the same ratio. However, when you heat the honey over 93 degrees, that destroys that insulin-like substance that the bees produce in the nectar to make that conversion. And then when they get back to the hive, they vomit. That's what honey is, bee vomit.
Well, I always buy it in the cones, so I know it's not stevia.
Good. Great. Better. And that wax is good for your skin.
What about when it gets over 100 in the desert and stuff?
Then it goes back into high sugar.
What if it goes over 93? On the high sugar?
As you go up from 93 to 100, it increases. Your question? You have what? Uh-huh.
I'm supposed to avoid high glycemic food like honey and maybe stevia or no sugar. What are your thoughts about that? I unfortunately I love sugar.
Well, you need it. I mean, if you've got fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue, you need sugars for digestive health.
And it makes me feel that.
Well, you're eating too much. You have to take just about 3 drops of it, like a quarter of a teaspoon every hour. That's not going to hurt you. So what you could do is put it in your milk. Yeah, take like a...
But not my hot fudge fun.
If you have honey and butter, you can do that. If you have dates, if you have dates, cheese, and butter, you can do that.
I'm supposed to stay away from cheese because it has mold.
Let me tell you, these alternative therapists don't know the butt from a hole in the ground. All they do is listen to doctors Doctors will say certain things. They think the same way as doctors. The body is attacking itself. If you're eating raw cheese that's mold, and that's how you make cheeses, the molds predigest the cheese just like lactobacillus predigests your yogurt, your milk to make yogurt and kefir. It's not a bad thing. If it's pasteurized molds. If it's mold grown on pasteurized cheese, you've got a problem. But my people with fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue, it depends on what's caused it. But they all eat cheese and they all eat honey. And they all eat some fruit. They just have to eat it with a lot of fat.
So what about, like, if your chronic fatigue is caused by intestinal yeast overgrowth? What is your...
It's a lie.
It's a lie?
Never happened. If you've got low bacteria, you better have molds in there to digest. If you don't have either very well, you better have parasites for digestion.
So do you have a diet for chronic fatigue and
Yeah.
fibromyalgia?
Well, it depends on what's caused it. I have a diet for the cause of those. And different people that's causing different people for different reasons.
So what do you,
Like what are the different causes? Like,
I can name 30.
Just name 2 or 3.
Okay, chemotherapy. When I had chemotherapy, I went into chronic fatigue and fibromyalgia. When I was a child, I as young as I can remember, had fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue from vaccines. So different things can cause it. Some kind of industrial pollution has caused it in your system. A whole lifetime of collecting it. It got to the point where, hey, can't handle it anymore. So now all of your nutrients are going to isolate and harness those toxins instead of going to the activity of your body.
So do you think I should take clay and do that to help?
Clay, any of those things, cheese, best thing to help pull those poisons out of the body. But it has to be raw, no salt cheese. And if it's moldy on the outside, you see some white on the outside, you just scrape that off. The mold inside is fine, but the spores, if you look at that white hair, moldy stuff, if you look at it under a microscope, you'll see it's hundreds of thousands of little tiny microscopic mushrooms, which continues the spore. You can get too many spores at one time in a sick body. So you just scrape off the top. There's no mushrooms inside, only on the surface.
So scrape the cheese off if it has mold?
If it has white mold on it.
That's only if the body is sick.
Yeah. Otherwise, you might be able to use the molds. Fine, if you're healthy enough. Oh, Marco, you had a question? Do you have a question?
Oh, no.
Okay. Do you have a question?
I looked at the Bonnie Bachelor Bacteria Talk. Bonnie Bachelor Bacteria Talk, I watched that.
The body what?
Bachelor.
Bonnie Bachelor? Bonnie Bachelor? What he sounds like you said.
Yeah.
It's a person?
Oh, anyway, she did a bacteria talk, and...
Oh, Bonnie. Oh, the bacteria woman you're talking about from TED. Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, she did hers 7 years ago, and at that time they believed it was 100 bacterial genes to every one human gene. But in the last 2 years, they've started breaking down the genomes of bacteria. And now their thing is a minimum of 150 bacterial genes to one human gene.
Well, the question was, they want to use it for antibiotics and all that kind of good stuff. And she's injecting mice and making them sick, but I assume it's just with bacteria.
Yeah, but she's taking bacteria that she's grown in a petri dish.
Okay.
Not bacteria that naturally occurs in the body. Even if I take your cells and put them in a petri dish, your body is not, those cells are no longer functioning with your blood supply, your neurological flow, and your lymphatic flow. It is completely chemistry. It is a foreign environment. You put bacteria, Salmonella, E. coli, anything, what's it going to do? It's going to start digesting those cells. So then the pharmaceutical industry and your laboratory technicians say, see, it's eating these human cells. Sure, in a petri dish, it will, but not inside the human body unless the cell is already decayed. But it won't attack a live cell in the body like it attacks a live cell in the Petri dish or in the mouse. She's taking a bacteria that she's cultured, not in the body, but in a solution, in a laboratory solution, and injecting that into mice.
It's not a natural bacteria.
It's not a natural bacteria. Nor is it injecting it into one place in the body a good thing. It's putting a concentrated bacteria.
They say ejection itself is not normal.
Absolutely. And you're going to deteriorate the tissue at that site of injection. Then what are you going to have?
Right. Infection. Okay.
I mean, it's as shallow as the medical thinking is, they get away with it because nobody thinks deeply. And the doctors stay stupid because they're not conditioned to think deeply. But the scientists are tunnel vision too.
Yeah, I know.
Kathy, do you have a question? Is it pussing or anything, turning colors? Fungus here. You've got penicillin. You have penicillin and tetracycline in those joints in that toe. You may have in all those toes in that foot, but you've got penicillin and tetracycline discharging out that toe. The only thing you can do is put lime juice on it. Let lime juice soak into it.
Squeeze just a lime on it?
Squeeze on, rub it in a little bit, and then put a clay pack on it. You know, wrap it with... Pardon? Yeah, put, gauze, gauze strip, clay in it, wrap it many times so it stays moist, wet the gauze after it gets on there. The clay is already wet.
Yeah, with the clay.
Put the clay on the gauze and on the toe, wrap that around, wet the gauze so the clay doesn't dry out, and then put tape around it. Okay? And I'll change it once every 2 days. If it feels like it's getting dry, then just put a little water or milk. No more lime. You just do it one time each time you change the bandage. Okay? Do you have a question back there?
What do you recommend for constipation? When I eat meat and cheese, I eat with plenty of onions, I eat with plenty of butter, I eat with plenty of the regular things that I've always done with.
But you're so thin, your body is so fat deficient, it doesn't have any extra, so you'd have to double up on your butter, or because you're so thin, your bowel is very dry. So the only way you're going to get enough fats to your bowel is to put it in the rectum. So what I suggest people do is take 3 tablespoons each of butter, coconut cream, and dairy cream. Sour cream is the best when you're doing that. You mix them together in a little 4-ounce jelly jar. You shake it with a 1/4 teaspoon of honey only. That's the size of a bean. And then you shake that, put that in a bowl of hot water. Let it get up to about 103, 105 degrees. Take a bulb syringe and insert that into your rectum and leave it. Now when you do that, I suggest you get on all fours and bark like a dog. Get on all fours. I'll show you. Get on all fours. And you put it in you. Now some people can do it this way. Some people do it this way. But after you get it in you, and you need to have extender that will go in at least that far so you can get it past the rectal area into the sigmoid colon. Then, after you get it in, you go down on your face on your hands. Like that. Move this chair a moment for demonstration. Okay, so you're like this. You roll your belly like a belly dancer. That'll move it up the descending colon and up to the transverse. Then you do that for about 3 minutes, 4 minutes. Then you lie on your right side, lift your left leg up, and you roll your stomach again like a belly dancer. And it will move it into the transverse and a little bit down into the ascending colon. So what you've done is directly fed your E. coli and other colon bacteria with fresh fat that they never get. And it usually makes people more positive, happier, and you don't have constipation. Constipation, true constipation is when you've got a block in your intestines. Most people's constipation is that their bacteria, their bowel, is holding up the fecal matter in the sigmoid colon to get as much nutrients out of it as possible. Remember that bacteria is 90% of digestion, 80 to 90%. If you're real healthy, it's 90%. The bacteria eats the food that you've eaten. Their fecal matter, their urine, their sweat is our food. So never be squeamish about it. You eat shit, piss, and sweat. That's what we eat from the bacteria. So don't get squeamish about it. That's how we eat. So that the colon bacteria, since you've been on a toxic diet most of your lives, those colon bacteria are very starved for good, fresh nutrients. They always get what's left over and remains from being on a toxic diet for so long. So you can feed them in the back end, your whole life will change.
It doesn't happen regularly, happens once in a while.
Uh-huh. Feed it anyway. You're skinny, feed it. Anybody who's thin, somebody like, who's good and has lots of good fat on them, they don't have to do it frequently, but you will. You're thin.
So basically, I should just double the intake or good fat.
Yeah, but like I said, your body is so starved of nutrients, everything's going to be ripped out in the small intestines, and you're not going to have much left over for the colon. And if you do that once a week, your body's going to be so much happier.
Can high meat help with that too?
High meat, unless it's a high-fat meat, has to be very concentrated in meat. In fat. And most meats are not.
Where do you think?
Not grass-fed, anyway.
Where did you get that bulk syringe out of?
Cara.
Cara?
C-A-R-A. It's like $7 online.
You can get them at any...
Not anymore.
You can't?
Nope. All you can get is the little baby 2-ounce ones.
CVS, I got that.
Pardon?
CVS.
I've looked in 8 CVS's and none of them had it.
Mine had it.
Where was yours?
The one on Alameda and San Fernando and Burbank.
Terrific. Yeah, if you're not in the valley, then just order one online. How much was yours?
About $7.
Yeah, that's about all they are.
About 2 weeks ago, I had an eruption on my back, right office, and it spread out to an area about that big, and it was multiple eruptions, and none of them actually came to a head, like a boil or anything.
Rash.
No, it's just like a deep boil that never exposed itself, never became pus-filled or anything.
So they were quite
raised. And very hard and stiff, and probably been an area that big. It's still there, but it always felt like it should have come to a point where...
Too deep.
Too deep. So what do you do about that?
You have to put, one day you put pineapple on it, hot water bottle. You have to have a hot water bottle in there. So all that will be dissolved and move out because it's too deep. It's got to move into the lymphatic system. Lymphatic system has to break it down so it can be perspired out of the body. So you've got to use, you put pineapple one day, butter on it the next, butter on it the next, then papaya, rub papaya into it, then 2 days of butter, 1 day of pineapple, and just keep the heat on it all night long. And if you're sitting around anywhere, you could use a hot water bottle on it then too. Like if you're sitting down working at a computer, or you've got an office job, hot water bottle there too while you're sitting there. The more heat and the more hours, the quicker it will break down and be removed from the system.
Your recommendation to gain weight?
Eat a pound of meat a day with a lubrication formula twice daily. If you want, that's what I put my weightlifters on, bodybuilders. If you don't want to gain that much weight that fast, and you're not working out to help, then eat about 2/3 of a pound with about 3/4 of a lubrication formula twice daily. Okay? Do you have a question? Okay. Jim?
I have a question. I didn't hear all of Kathy's things, but I've got like a strange growth that it's right there, and you touch it, and it's sharp. It's like a mineral.
Oh yeah, that's a wart.
It is.
Yeah. That is a wart that's very quickly disintegrating, so that's a good sign. Most warts will grow on there and stay there for a long time. His is already turning into like a scab and just can break it off. So that's a good thing. Pardon?
Should you just leave it alone or do something about it?
Well, you can put in a hot water, soak it in hot water like you do in a hot tub. Do you take hot baths every day?
No.
Okay. Well, you can put your foot in a hot bucket, something like that. Like here, from those injections. You remember how all these came out?
Oh, yeah.
From all those injections? Well, every anniversary of the injections in April, I started having cancer again. So it covered the foot completely, starting in April, the first week in April, and it's just now finishing. And these were all cancer tumors. This one was the worst. It was very thick and very high. And what I do is I take a bucket. No matter if I'm in a hotel room, I'll take their bucket, put hot water with the coconut cream and milk in it, and some sea salt, and I'll soak that foot for when it was so bad that I had the whole foot was covered all the way. You can see all these spots. They were all big things like this. So they come and they go. This one has lasted a full 4 weeks. This one lasted 3 weeks. Most of those lasted about 2 weeks at a time. This one is going to go probably a full 6-7 weeks for this one. But I soaked it sometimes 5 hours a day so that the tumor would break up and dissolve and not stay hard. Well, I'd have to wait for the cancer cells to die to secrete their fluid to dissolve it. So therefore I didn't have, huge sores that would take up my whole body. And also the growth would get bigger and bigger. When I went 3 days in the desert when I was doing the gun training without soaking it, because I didn't take the time, this thing got very thick and very hard, and it just kept growing and growing. As soon as I started putting it in the water, it started reducing immediately.
Water with what?
Water with the coconut cream, sea salt, and milk. I will shoot anybody that tries to inject me again. Let that be known to spread the word. Pardon? Oh, I was abducted in a hotel room after I talked against the swine flu in 2009. And 6 weeks, I got a lot of death threats for a month. And I went to Asia, and I was abducted in a hotel room and given 3 shots in the arm. Pardon?
Have you gotten rid of those shots that come out of your foot?
It's still coming out.
Oh. By the way, that's in a newsletter. So,
it's in one of the newsletters.
On the site. Yeah, I heard about it. Yeah.
Be a subscriber.
A lot of good information in there.
Oh, totally good, yeah.
In fact, most of those newsletters are going to make up the next detoxification book. Now, the next newsletter will be coming out this week. I know I'm 6 months behind, but you'll be getting one every month, or you get probably 2 in July. But there's going to be a lot of pictures on my cancers, how I went through it, from April till now. And also, I have pictures of the bladder stone that I had in 2006 that everybody says, all these rumors are going on are all about what I had. So I'm going to set the record straight and show the pictures and tell everybody what they were and what happened and why. Okay? So stop all these frickin' rumors.
What were the proportions of what you soaked that in? I got it was coconut cream.
Well, I would have a bucket that would go up this high. Okay? And in, let's say it's 2.5 gallons of water, I had about half a cup of milk, tablespoon of sea salt or Epsom salt. Mostly use sea salt because it's easier to get, because I don't like to buy a big amount. And some coconut cream, like 2 tablespoons of coconut cream. Okay, your question.
Okay, I just need to talk a little bit again about the sea in terms of fish.
About what?
The sea. Fish in the ocean. Sea life, Fukushima, Gulf oil spill. Like, what are you recommending eating from these seas?
I recommend eating deep sea fish right now, not from the Pacific Ocean, from the Atlantic, from fish caught anywhere from South Carolina up.
Everything in the Whole Foods doesn't come from there.
You have to buy the fish that does. Well, you can go to Santa Monica Seafood Market, and you have a better selection.
Well, how about New Zealand, like Hawaii? That's specific.
Those are fine. Well, not Hawaii. New Zealand is fine. Australia is fine. Norway is fine. Finland, Sweden. Except for because Hawaii is getting more radiation from Fukushima than anything. Lori is there. I don't know if some of you know Lori. And she's over there right now. And there is 1,200 times the radiation level.
Wow.
1,200 times. That's nothing like it is in the East, like in Dubai. It's 8,200 times the radiation level.
Dubai is the other side of the Atlantic, isn't it?
It's way over North Africa.
What about Alaskan
Northeast
salmon?
Africa.
Alaskan salmon.
Alaska salmon, the reports that Fukushima has taken more radiation up there than anywhere else. Yeah. So Alaska's not a good place.
So now, last time I saw you, you said that you just were not eating salmon whatsoever.
I don't eat salmon ever again.
And that reason?
The reason for that is every time I've eaten it, well, I stopped eating it 4 years ago. Because every time I ate it, no matter where it was from, I got sick. And what they did, they've been lying to us all along. They released genetically modified fish, salmon 30 years ago. They've only admitted doing it, and the law has allowed them to do it in the last 3-4 years. But they needed to allow them to do it because now people are detecting that this is genetically modified salmon. But it's so pervasive now in all the salmon because it was released 30 years ago. But they needed to get an okay on it because people started suing them for releasing the salmon. They were not supposed to be releasing the genetically modified salmon. They would be bankrupt.
What about Fanny Bay oysters? They're from Canada.
Which bay is it? Atlantic?
Well, in the oysters are the only shellfish I know that can build all the toxins into the shell. So as long as you're not eating the shells, I don't care where the oysters come from, they should be fine.
From the Pacific, like Bahama, they come
Correct.
from Seattle.
Yeah. I wouldn't buy anything from Hawaii, though.
The Seattle is okay.
Right, yeah.
So in terms of other than salmon, do you have any other refined ideas about which types of fish to eat?
Well, I have no other trouble with no other fish other than that. So you have halibut, you have sea bass, shark, tuna, any of your deep sea fish.
Tuna's from the Pacific. In San Diego, they told me.
Well, you can get tuna that's from other areas.
Swordfish is tasty too, right?
Swordfish is my favorite. Highest in mercury.
Good.
I had my hair analysis checked frequently one time because Greenpeace sponsored it, and I had to pay a very small amount. I sent them 7 samples of my hair, all from the same period, to see if there would be different concentrations of mercury coming out of my hair. And of course, where I'm balding, where I've been bald since the chemotherapy and radiation therapy, that area spits out the most mercury. So it keeps me bald. Although I have grown some hair in there that I didn't have before. So it's starting, coming and going. If I hadn't had those injections, I'd been 20 years younger than I am right now, the way I was before those injections. That's why I said I'm going to kill anybody that tries it again. Definitely will. They will be dead. And I am heavily armed now. I've got tasers. I've got a gun. I've just got my concealed carry permit in 30 states. I'll be getting in California soon. So I will be armed to the teeth.
Done your due diligence on abduction.
Absolutely. Anybody who tries it again is going to hurt. Terrible.
Did you go from the free pistol course?
Pardon?
Did you get the free pistol?
No, I think it's free. They're free pistol. I don't care for it. Yeah. Anyway, the fish that I like is the swordfish is my favorite. My mercury levels, even in my hair, before these injections, was anywhere from 2.3 to 3.2. No, it's 1.45 to 3.2 at the worst place. And you're not considered contaminated until you're 10 or 11. So I'm way down on the low end, and I eat a lot of swordfish. Doesn't absorb unless you're eating it cooked.
Where do you get your fish,
Santa Monica Seafood Market. You always get it freshest there.
Whole Foods is not known for.
You have to understand, Whole Foods gets theirs, they send yours for this and this and that. They hold it up. A lot of times they'll freeze it. So, if each store were to go buy at different markets, it would be fine, but they don't. Whole Foods buys and then distributes it to each store. Do you have a question?
Well,
Marilyn.
I was debating between insomnia or asking about. My daughter was doing this. I think it's a yoga class, exercising where they heat up the room and you're sweating. And
Bikram yoga.
Yeah, but you're moving and stuff. So I was wondering what you think about that as a. Is it good for you? Is it bad for you? Why? Why not?
It's okay. It's fine if you like exercise, but it's not going to melt the stuff out of your body. Your body, when you do exercise, even in a hot room like that, your body will never get over 100.1 degrees. In order to start melting that lymphatic congestive toxicity from waxed, hydrogenated plastic vegetable oils, your trans fatty acids, it takes 102 to 105, 103 to 105 degrees or hotter. So exercise isn't going to do that. It'll help get rid of lactic acids from metabolism, help you perspire those normal daily waste out, but it's not going to get in and clean up the lymphatic system.
Yeah, I know the hot bath helps with insomnia, but what else is good for insomnia?
Proteins.
Protein.
Yeah. Eat protein before you go to sleep. Milkshake, meat. Pardon? Eggs, yeah. Eggs, probably not a great idea because you get hungry too quickly. So I say a milkshake is better. Unless you're going to down about 5 eggs in 20 minutes.
Milkshake, but not with fruit, though.
No.
What do you put in the milk?
Milk, eggs, and honey. And milk. Milk, eggs, honey, and a little bit of cream.
Okay, mine mostly comes in the morning, like I'll sleep like 6 hours or so, and then I'll wake up and I'm so tired, but I can't go back to sleep.
What time do you wake up?
What time do I wake? Like 6 or
6 in the morning. Well,
or 5:30.
Well, what time do you go to sleep?
Well, I try to go to bed earlier, but lately it's been ending up going to bed like 11 or 12. Obviously, if I went to bed earlier, it would be better. But no, I just
You take a nap in the day. Most people need 8 hours. I only get about 3.5 to 4.5 hours a day.
And that works for you?
That works for me. When I was out there in the desert and all that heat and doing, having to stand for hours and shoot and doing some walking, I was sleeping 6 hours. But that was being active. My normal activity, my normal exercise is this. Over my computer, keyboard, and that's it. And carrying my groceries once a week. That's my exercise. Barbara.
I can't hear her. Okay.
Go ahead. I've come to you.
Can you go into some detail on what I can do with most of my
Well, she just discarded a tumor that was analyzed and was cancerous. That's a great thing when you're discharging tumors. And how large was the tumor?
6 inches long.
6-inch tumor. Now remember that a tumor, whether cancerous or benign, is a collection of dead cells that your body was not able to dissolve and remove from the system. Industrially, toxically damaged and hardened cells. The body may not want to even dissolve them. So rather than dissolve them, it builds it into a tumor, and in women they've got that great ability to discharge it to the uterus. So she discharged hers through the uterus. It came out 6-inch tumor. Great way to get rid of a lot of dead cells fast so the body didn't have to dissolve it. Nor did the cancer cells have to die and let out their viral-like serum, which is a solvent, to dissolve all the dead cells that surround each cancer cell. Now, a cancer cell is the remedy for cancer, not the problem. Your cancer cell has a fluid inside it that is viral-like, and it's a solvent that dissolves dead cells. Around each cancer cell, you will not find another live cancer cell. You will find it surrounded by anywhere from 50 to 200 dead cells. The serum from one cancer cell can dissolve that many they can dissolve that many dead cells. So your cancer cell is a way to get well fast. If you have a benign tumor and you have no cancer cell with a solvent to dissolve all that dead tissue, you're going to live with your benign tumor for your whole life. You'll never be able to get rid of it. There's no blood circulation into it, nothing. So I prefer cancerous tumors. Your cancer cell is your cure. So she discarded her. Now she wants to know how she can recover from that. When your body makes a tumor taking from her spine, she has spinal cancer. So for about 6 years? 5 years. So the body's taken all those dead cells along the spine, just like it did with the Wanza from my book, and built them into the cervix, and she started dumping, just like a Wanza did, tumors out of her uterus. Perfect. There is no quick recovery for that because the body has to replace spinal cells. Spinal cells are slower in growing. Only way you can speed that up is to have Jim rub bone marrow on your spine, all over your spine every night, and eat bone marrow 7 times a day. Eat 1 piece 7 times a day. You have it with milk, have it with your meat, but have it with one of those 2 things. Don't have it with fruit. You have it with milk and you have it with meat.
And the baths are important, or the baths not?
The baths are still pretty important. Not as long. 40-minute baths, 45-minute baths until she gets a little stronger, but not the 90-minute baths. 90-minute baths help you detox faster. 40-minute baths will help you detox the loose stuff from the daily detox of the lymphatic system and help bring the fever up to regenerate cells. When you go into 90 minutes, you're going into heavy lymphatic detoxification. Okay. All right, Michael, do you have a question?
Yeah, I tried the hot water bottle with some headaches, and it didn't seem to do anything. I think they're vision related. I'm having some retraction from the opposite, and it seems to make it worse.
Yes, it usually will make it worse for 5 to 10 minutes. It takes 20 minutes. I say that in my book, and I've said it here. You put a hot water bottle for a headache, it's going to make it worse for 5 to 10 minutes. It takes that long. Because you have to understand, the fissures in the skull are tightened together with these tendons, these little ligaments. And they do not relax easily. So when you put the heat on the skull, guess what heats up and swells first? The brain. So you're going to have more headache for the first 5 to 10 minutes. Then after that, the fissures start relaxing. I mean, the links to the on the fissures, the ligaments relax. Then the whole skull expands, and then that relieves the pressure. Because a headache is the pressure from the swelling in the brain on the meningi to the skull. It's not, you don't have a headache in the brain. Neurons don't have any nerves.
You got migraine too?
Migraines too. Always swelling in the brain that puts pressure on the meningi, the skin of the brain, which is anywhere from 8 to 11, sometimes more layers thick. So that's what the headache is. So to get that skull to swell, to expand, to relax and expand, it takes 15, 20 minutes. So first 5 to 10 minutes of more headache, you just have to get through it.
Well, I did that. It seems to work for a little bit, and then the headache just disappears. I put it on for 15 minutes.
Well, you're supposed to take it off after the headaches subside.
And I do. And
it still starts again? You must have something awfully toxic in your brain. Could be formaldehyde. I don't know anything that causes more swelling than formaldehyde. Squalene can cause that kind of... Squalene causes that kind of brain swelling in mice and rats. Have you had a flu vaccine in the past 3 years? It's not squalene, then. Pardon? Salt can do that, but, salt can do that. 90% of headaches in the average person are from salt. Were you a heavy salt eater when you were young? I think you had probably formaldehyde or something. Did you work with chemicals at all in your lifetime? Yeah. And what were they? What kind of chemicals? Antifreeze like antifreeze, what's that stuff, Freon, anything like that. Those will cause massive headaches and brain swelling. Because some things are pretty toxic. Are you eating the cheese regularly?
I can eat cheese.
What happens?
Cheese constipated. Eat it with butter.
You put that injection up your butt. You're getting too lazy, Michael. One key thing. Because that cheese can help pull that stuff out so it doesn't stay in your brain easily. And you put that, suppository in there every 3 days. I know it's a pain in the butt.
Not so bad once you do it.
I know. It's very soothing.
Right, yeah.
Once you get used to it.
You leave it in all night, too, don't you?
Yeah, you don't let it out. It's to be digested and absorbed. That's why you roll your belly like a belly dancer. Get it to move up in there. Once every 3 days.
Deep headache.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you said once a week.
Well, that's for the average person, but for Michael, he may need every 3 days.
Okay. No one said it was going to be easy for him.
Getting well is not easy in an industrially toxic, intendedly so society, and we are that. And when they try to rob us of our milk and they're filing a suit against Amish farmers for providing milk for private individuals, that's serious problem. Serious problem. Allison, do you have a question?
Sure. Little question. What's the best way to put it?
Your nice wart? That's a tumor. It's a
tumor?
benign tumor.
Benign tumor.
Yeah. So you can put. There are several things you can put on it. If you want to get rid of it quicker, you rub raw and pasteurized apple cider vinegar on just the top area.
Okay.
2-3 times a day. Okay. It will turn into stop layer into a scab, and you just keep peeling off a layer every 3 days. Peel off a layer of it. Probably take about 6 months, 9 months to get rid of it.
Really? So no pineapple on?
You can put pineapple on it too. It'll go deeper, but it's slower.
So it'll go deeper,
yeah.
But it's slower.
Yeah. So what you can do is put pineapple on it 1 day, and then vinegar on for the next 3 days. You use pineapple once every 4 days.
She also recommend putting the linen behind.
Not for that kind of a wart.
Would skin tags react the same way that does? I mean, that's a large tumor, but what if you have a lot of skin tags?
Skin tags?
Like every freckle you ever had turns into a little thing. Same thing?
Yeah. Put pineapple.
Pineapple.
And vinegar.
Okay.
And you can do that every day.
Not together. Separately. 1 day the pineapple, 2 to 3 days the vinegar.
So are those, like they thing on our arm and skin tags, are they the same kind of thing? The body's just shoving cells?
Those are a little harder.
Yeah.
Skin tags are usually a smaller network of them, and they're not as complex and not as hard.
But essentially it's the same thing. It's dead cells. The body.
Dead cells. Well, no. Not all. Those are not predominantly dead. Not predominant. Some of it's cartilage in there. Some of these cells are cartilage from our elbow, and they're not dead cells, but they don't function well as cartilage anymore. They're still alive. It's soft. It isn't like Jim's. Jim's is hard. His are completely dead, scaling off. It's already dry. What she will do when she puts the vinegar and pineapple on there, she will kill them. She's saying, I don't want, joint cells here on my skin. If you don't work there, get the fuck off.
But it won't really do anything to the skin part underneath it.
You have a white area there when it leaves. About like, a little whitened area like this.
Also, that phone cord that you ordered from that Japanese company, do you have to get an attachment on that as well, or is it just the cord?
It's just a cord. There's no wire inside this. It's just a rubber tube. Goes into the ear. This goes on the phone.
Where do you get those?
I bought it in Thailand.
What kind of order it here?
I don't know.
I'll find out. I'll put it on the site.
Okay. All right. And it just clips onto your phone. Now I've got a good phone now that the speaker phone is all I need to use most of the time. Once in a while I get somebody with a bad connection and just put it on like this. Here's the earpiece where you listen. This clips right onto there. And then I never hold the cell phone. I put it down and I will talk like this. Mic's here, so I'm talking into there and I'm hearing out of here. So this phone is at least a foot away from me.
You're in the car, though? You only use it in a car?
In a car, yes I will, but it's on in the door slot.
Oh. On the passenger side? No.
If I'm driving, I'm on on my side. I'm not going to put way the frick over there. It's not going to reach.
Do you find that superior to BioPro and their hollow tube piece that's supposed to be very safe for cell phones?
Well, I haven't looked at the newest BioPro stuff.
BioPro, I thought you gave me one a couple of years ago.
Is that the called a Bluetooth?
It's a Bluetooth, and there's a hollow tube to help insulate against any.
Yeah, but you've got a speaker here.
Yes.
Near the heart, and that's a bad thing.
Ah.
You've got electromagnetic field coming out near the heart, especially if you use it in the left ear. It's right at the heart, and right at your thyroid. Not a good thing.
No good.
Your thymus. So
well, I
this.
want one of those. Pretty good. Yeah, I want those too.
Jim's going to find out.
What kind of phone do you have, Aajonus? What's the phone that you have, the brand and model?
This is AT&T. Life is Good. LG. I forgot what it's called.
One at 7-Eleven. Are they any? I have one from inexpensive for 7-Eleven, $14.
You mean a phone? I don't know. What I do is I take my EMF meter in and I go test every phone. And I find one that has the least radiation and least EMF field.
What model is that? You know the model number?
I don't really. It's one of their smallest that I leave it off to. I only turn my phone on when I'm using it. It doesn't put out much EMF field except when you're on a call. When you're engaged on a call. The radiation level in the EMF field is very low. It will send out a signal communicating with the tower about every 3-4 minutes. So it will keep reaching for it. But you can see it's a very small-faced AT&T LG phone. I don't like AT&T, but I've got no choice where I live.
Talk about the milk situation in the country. What, like state by state, is it getting worse or better? Or
I have another question.
It's getting worse. Well, you haven't had a question yet. What is your question? You don't have one?
No.
Okay.
Okay, then that's it.
I have a question, right?
You don't have to have one.
Okay, the milk situation is getting worse instead of better. The FDA filed a suit against Dan Augur, one of my Amish farmers, in June. They filed it in April 16th. I guess it was April 16th, June 16th, somewhere around April 16th. And they asked for and they filed it not in criminal, they filed a civil suit. Because, the Supreme Court gave corporations the right to be persons. So now the U.S. government corporation can sue in civil court. Before they couldn't do it. They only could take you to criminal court. So they filed a civil action to get a permanent injunction against him producing raw milk. And in that plea, they said that raw milk is dangerous and it causes epidemics. No such thing. There's no science for that or anything. Now, my Amish farmer, they do not sue. Amish farmers do not sue. So all he did was get a legal advocate to answer, we are not commercial. We produce the milk for somebody else. The cows are owned by somebody else. We do not deal in commerce. FDA and governments only have jurisdiction over commerce. That's how I set it up. So that's how he pled. And so I cross-sued. I filed a cross complaint in intervention, which I said the FDA is out of their jurisdiction. We are not in commerce. They only have jurisdiction over commerce. These cows are owned by a club. No milk goes to the public. They have jurisdiction over only the public, which is involved in commerce. So they have, I told them, I wrote them a letter, the FDA and the HHS, the Human Health Services, which is the big branch of government which houses the FDA, the USDA, and the other health services. And I warned them in May of 2010, May 15, 2010, that the animals were owned by a private club, and the milk was only being produced for them. It was not being sold to the public. You had to be a paid member to join. You have to sign a membership agreement which says that we only want raw milk. We want the bacteria in it. We want all the bacteria in it and all of that. And you have no jurisdiction. The next time you come on the property, you better have a warrant. And if you have a warrant, it will be an illegal warrant because you're going for jurisdiction that's out of, and somebody has falsified documents to get a warrant. So I said, we will get you for trespassing and harassment. So they came back a year later and did it. Came in with a warrant. So I filed suit against them across $480,000 against them for trespassing, kidnapping. Now, when a government agency, they have double standards. When a government agency seizes you, they call it arrest. So it would be a false arrest. That's bullshit. If you seize anybody for 2 minutes, it's kidnapping. Okay? So I filed kidnapping charges against them, not false arrest. I put false arrest in brackets behind the kidnapping. Got them for racketeering, for fraud, for false information they put up on their website and the CDC. I asked for an injunction against them from putting any non-scientifically based information about raw milk on their website again, ever. And so I got them for a lot. And the DOJ, the Department of Justice, flipped out when they got my cross complaint. And they said, oh, he's taking this, he's bringing issues in that have nothing to do with it. And I responded back, you opened the door of Pandora's box when you said that raw milk causes epidemics. You opened the gate for that. Sorry, fellows. You can't get out of it now. So the judge hasn't ruled on anything yet, so I don't know how it's going to stand.
Wow.
Thank you. Well, Barbara asked to tell, I was going to build a clinic in Thailand, and I spent 7 years looking for a piece of property, and that means I took a 4-wheel drive, and I've been everywhere in Thailand, except some of the islands. And I just don't want an island where there are earthquakes, and there are earthquakes around it. So, didn't want to be on an island. So I finally found a piece of land in a remote area at the foot of a national forest, at the foot of a mountain. So there's no pollution in that mountain coming down to my property. Only great water and all the leaves and everything from the forest coming down and fertilizing my land. So I bought 73 rye, which is about 34 acres. 2/3 of it are national forests, which I wanted to keep. I dug. There was a pond there that was as big as this whole area here. I made it a 90 by 90 meter lake. They freaked out. I said I didn't cut one fucking tree down, so get off my back. They seized the backhoe. They seized the tractor. I only got the lake 2/3 built, dug, still 1/3 to go, as deep as I want it, because I want to be able to grow lots of big fish there. In Thailand, they have some of the biggest fish in the Mekong Delta River that are 200-pound catfish. I love raw catfish. You know, it's just hard to find anywhere where there's a stream where there's raw catfish. It's not polluted. So that's what I wanted to create. So I still need to dig it out some more. So the government came in, threatened to seize my land, take over 2/3 of my land, and I wouldn't get possession of it anymore. And they were going through this. It went on for a year. And then the last time I met with them, they called me in for a conference with the judge, the district attorney, the land authority, the forest department, and the police department. And they tried to extort me for $200,000. I lost it. I said, you don't know who the fuck you're dealing with. And I said, fuck.
Wow.
And it's being translated to them. And I said, let me tell you something. You're a little country and I'm a little famous. I'm going to go on the internet and tell them what you're doing to me. You will be embarrassed. You're going to lose a lot of investment into this land if you do this to me. And I said, and there are people, if I go online and tell them that, they're going to be angry, and some of them are violent. They're mafia types. I've already been told. Some of them approached me and said, if ever you need anybody for strong arming, we are there for you. Okay? So I said, and I went around with my camera, and I took every license plate, photographed every license plate on every car and every motorcycle, and all of their pictures before I left that day. They had not screwed with me since. However, they are not going to let me build any more buildings on the property. My house, my barn, and my workers who live on the land, I built a house for them. So, or I gave them the materials to buy the house, to build their house. That's all they're going to let me build. They don't want any more that close to the forest. So I have to buy the adjacent land, which will be for sale pretty soon. But I got them very angry with me, those people. So I don't know if they're going to sell me directly. I may have to have somebody go buy it for me. Anyway, I have to buy some adjacent property, not on either side of the forest. I have to buy this right adjacent to my property, away from the forest, and that land will be for sale soon.
So the main objection had to do with the visual in terms of putting structures up, or did it have to?
They don't want any contamination on the land next adjacent to it. They let Thais do it. I mean, there's a fish hatchery that built, you know, just like mine, only right up against the forest, cut all the trees down. But with me, they're not going to let me do it.
It's usually for extortion of foreigners.
Pardon?
It's usually done for extortion of foreigners. You know,
Yeah.
you can't do this, you can't do this. It's just so you keep paying them off.
Yeah.
This has happened in Mexico. I have a lot of experience with that. Yeah. That's the only reason they don't care. They don't care about anything else. Yeah.
I know, that's what it is.
Yeah, you got to buy them off constantly.
But when I threaten them, but there really, I have patients that reversed their cancer in Bangkok, who have some heavy people who kill. And they said, anybody ever disturbs you let me know. So I told them that. I told the police, the chief of police, the chief judge in that area. I told them that. And I got their pictures and their license plate numbers.
You get your tractor back?
Well, it wasn't mine. It was a company I hired.
So you don't have any fish that you want on your property now?
Pardon?
The fish that's on it.
I have fish, but they're small fish. The biggest they're going to get is this big, but I want big fish. So I have to catch and butcher them all the time.
Can you put a clinic on the new land once you get it?
Yes.
What kind of clinic is going to deal with anything that's...
Well, it would be people coming there to get well on the primal diet and be taken care of, have their food made for them. Also, there will be classes on how to, but I've got my DVD out now, my recipe DVD, so you don't have to come to, unless you just like working with other people. Being with other people on the diet can be a resort, be a clinic, and it will be all those things.
This is the one in the Philippines or the one in Thailand?
Thailand. The one in the Philippines, it's way off, no paved roads to it, very rough territory to get to.
You walk there or you
People would not get well going to it.
Once you said you're going to start experimenting with raw herbs, that maybe you've got some land.
Well, I got the land in Thailand for that now.
Oh, good.
And I'm converting, right now it's mostly rice. I've converted about 5 acres to coconuts, because there are no coconuts on that property. I got coconuts in the Philippine property, but not in the Thai property. So I have coconuts, I have papaya now, I have citrus fruit, I've got, what do we call them, lamyai, a lot of the tropical fruits.
So you grow avocados there?
I have avocados. I planted avocados. So, and I've got jackfruit. Mangoes. I've got more of that in the Philippine property already growing and already matured. I've got jackfruit that's 100 feet high. It puts out jackfruit this big.
Oh, boy.
So, and pineapple. I just planted pineapple in both places. So I'm developing it slowly. I've got 3 cows in Thailand, 1 horse, and in the Philippines I have 11 goats. Well, by the time I get back, there'll be about 5 more, and lots of chickens in both places.
What will you do with the land in the Philippines?
That's for me.
Wow.
My time away. And that's about it's on a mountain overlooking the ocean, and it isn't like in Malibu where the mountains are very far from the ocean. It's only about 3/4 of a mile down to the ocean, so I'm close to the ocean, even though I'm high above it, like 2,000 feet. My property starts at 2,000 feet and goes up to about 10,000 feet. So it's about 900 meters, 600 to 900 meters. And it has a panoramic view of the ocean. Across the ocean is Vietnam, but you can't see it. And the only boats that you see on it are little bitty fishing boats that hold 3 people. A ship maybe once every 2 or 3 months, once a month sometimes, from the copper mine at the bottom of the island where I live, which is about 100 miles south, and it goes over to Japan or Taiwan to deliver the copper. And that's the only ship that ever travels there, because there are no cities on the west side of that island. Only cities on the east side of the island and the south point of the island. So it's completely pristine. Pristine and beautiful.
Are you going to be treating people with stem cells, or you don't think that's a good idea?
I won't be doing that.
Oh, no. Do you have somebody that's going to do that in the clinic?
No, not at the clinic. They can go to Bangkok and have it done by one of my patients if they want that.
Bangkok, stem cells. For anything for your teeth or your,
No, they're just certain things that they do it for right now. They have to have doctors who are willing to inject for certain things. He has it for heart, for pancreas, for liver, kidneys. I think that's it, those 4 right now.
What's this drop?
Bone marrow.
bone marrow, and then I think you said
Well, those stem cells are not animal. Those are vegetable stem cells.
Right.
So they're still not going to act like like bone marrow. Bone marrow and meat, bone marrow and milk.
And where do you harvest the bone marrow from? Is that in the book?
No, you get that from North Star Bison or one of the Amish farmers.
Oh, okay.
Ordered.
Oh, yeah, I saw it over there.
Why did you pick Thailand versus, say, Brazil?
Well, I didn't go to South America because Cheney and Bush and that crew bought up over 200 million acres. And I don't want to be anywhere where they are. And nobody likes the Philippines because there are so many volcanoes. There are 52 volcanoes there. 19 of them are active. The only place in the Philippines where they don't have volcanoes and don't have typhoons or hurricanes is on the island I'm on. Because it's remote off from all these islands here with all these volcanoes along that, they call it the Ring of Fire. My island, Palawan, not my island, island I'm on, Palawan, is way off west of it between the other Philippine islands and Vietnam. So it's isolated. It's on its own table and belt. So it won't break off. It doesn't have any volcanoes. It doesn't have any earthquakes, no typhoons. It's an ideal island. Only island I could find on the planet that was not threatening. In a primitive area. I mean, if you go to, Greece and, what's that sea there? Mediterranean Sea and those other seas around there. Sure, they have areas that don't have volcanoes on them, but that's European, same kind of garbage, King and Queen of England run food system. But where I'm on Palawan, there's only 2% population. The biggest city there is 50,000 people. That's the biggest city. That's a tiny city compared to other cities in the United States and the world. So there's very little, only 2% of the roads are paved on that whole island. And everybody lives in their huts. I've got a house that's it's 60 feet by 20 feet. That's not a big house. Over there, they look at it and they see it as a mansion. They do. They look at it and that's a mansion. Because they live in these little houses that are about as big as this porch. I'm serious. As big as that porch over there is their house. And that will keep a whole family.
They don't have to be inside much, right?
Hmm.
They don't have to be inside much.
I don't want to be inside much.
No.
Too hot.
What kind of diet do they have? Do they eat a lot of coconut water, coconut meat, fish?
It depends upon the tribes, where they are. Most of them eat right out of their own gardens.
How do you get your food?
Well, in Philippines, there's a dairy there run by the government, which I buy my milk raw from. They don't have many cows, but I'll be getting my own there the next time I go in October and November. Also in Thailand, there are dairies all over there. So I go in and buy the raw milk, and they don't have any problem with it. There's no law against it. So in the Philippines, or they all advocate pasteurization. They do pasteurize their milk, but you can go buy it raw. They'll even deliver to you raw. Not as remote as my property is. I have to go in every 5 days and get a bunch of milk. But when I get my own cows, which I will get at both locations, I will have my own milk. But I did get the goats, so I can have my own goat's milk in the Philippines. What time is it, folks?
It's 5:35.
5 what?
5:35.
Oh, we're way over, aren't we?
Yeah, we really drained you.
Well, thank you. Jim and Barbara you for coming.
Oh yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, we wouldn't have missed it. It's a good one.
You know, we have with us the lady that takes care of raw, healthy foods. If you want to co-op and you're anywhere around here, talk to Marilyn and get the website.
Oh, yeah.
She delivers in Santa Monica, San Diego, somewhere, and
Yeah.
yeah.
And then we have the Detroit Hunter.
Pardon?
And if we had a big enough group here, we could have a drop-off point in the West Hollywood area.
Yeah, true. Yes. You go to rawhealthyfoods.com. R-A. Raw.
Healthy food.
Like in the sun god, Egyptian sun god, Ra.
Is that a .com?
Raw healthy